Now, how many of us complain about the lack of electricity but don't turn off the lights in the house? How many complain about the bills but keep the TV on standby? How many hate the fumes on our roads and the cost of petrol but refuse to walk or cycle to work or school? That's me, by the way. Well, all of these are just a few aspects of how we can do our bit towards protecting our environment. And Lead Pakistan is a group of professionals, organisations and civil society activists working on long-term development in education, health, governance and the environment. They're launching a major project trying to get us to really take action about climate change, and the CEO, Ali Tauqeer Sheikh, joins me in the News Eye studio tonight. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. What is climate change, and how many Pakistanis do you reckon are really aware of what we mean by climate change?
Climate is probably the biggest challenge to humanity. It's a result of a pattern of development that we have followed for 250 years, mostly because of not very responsible production systems that we have followed, resulting in huge emissions, causing changes in the world climate. Now, the second part of your question, unfortunately, many of us do not realize that how serious this problem is, even though we do get affected adversely in our daily lives.
The problem is, though, that people tend to be worried about putting food on the table in Pakistan. We've all talked about price hikes. It's a story that we've covered here on the programme so many times. Given the current economic crisis, is it really going to be a priority? Is it going to be high up on our priority list to tackle climate change, or does it even enter our minds?
It ought to be. There is no other option for us. There are 5 specific challenges that we have in terms of climate change impact on Pakistan. One is it will add to our water insecurity. The quality of water, the availability of water and the excess of water will diminish over a period of time. And our agriculture hinges on this. So therefore, the second challenge is the food security challenge. This is also a result of climate change. And then third challenge is we are a very disaster-prone country. We rely for more than 50% of our water on glaciers. They're melting and it's accelerating. We anticipate that during next half a century or so, we'll lose them, resulting in permanent reduction in flow of water. And as it flows down, it'll end because of deforestation and other elements. We'll have flash floods and more vulnerability for our communities. And roughly half of our population is vulnerable. And finally, our infrastructure is very weak. It's not geared to protect us. So smaller earthquake, smaller flash flood, smaller disaster results in large number of casualties. Yeah,
the problem is, though, that the average man, the average Pakistani man or woman or child probably will be carrying on with their lives thinking this isn't going to impact me today, this is something that's going to happen down the road, and not actually see the impact of climate change in their everyday life. So how do you explain to them that they've got to do something about it?
It does. We just last year, we experienced price hike in food products. We experienced price hike in oil prices, and this impacted adversely our capacity to buy our utilities, our food, and to send our children to education.
But there's a disconnect, isn't there? That everyone thinks that climate change
not
is
everybody
a
understands
thing
about it. Not everybody understands this, and that's the big challenge. The climate debate for almost 2 decades has been a very scientific debate. What is the rate of increase in climate? The challenge for us is how do we translate that scientific evidence into the language that everybody relates to, and that's precisely the challenge that we are facing in this country and perhaps in many other countries, whereby a common man doesn't understand. For a housewife, it's a very simple issue. What would it cost me to get my food, and how many hours I'll need to spend to fetch water, and how much time I'll need to spend to collect fuel wood. So these are everyday questions. And remember, more than half of our population lives in rural areas, and roughly 30% of our population is below the poverty line. And they are very vulnerable. And as the climate change impact accelerates, and we see that it's already happening in last 20 years, we see that more and more people will be migrating to urban areas for better opportunities. As it is, the rate of urbanization in Pakistan is much higher. We are the most urbanized country in South Asia. So what we see is that these 4 or 5 key elements that relate to every human being living in Pakistan, particularly in fragile ecosystems, in coastal areas, in mountainous areas, and in the riverbeds. In the riverbeds, because they're very, very prone to disasters.
Are you working closely with the Environment Ministry, because Pakistan's one of the 20 most probably adversely affected countries? But are we prepared? What's the Environment Ministry doing, and what are you doing to help?
Well, the Ministry of Environment is the lead agency as far as government of Pakistan is concerned, and it has taken several actions to start addressing this issue. It has set up committees, intergovernmental committees. It's working with civil society actors quite closely. It's trying to undertake revision of certain policies. Government of Pakistan.
But what actions being taken?
Well, in terms of actions, you remember this is a multifaceted challenge. It has linkages with agriculture, it has linkages with water ministry, it has linkages with all kinds of departments and ministries, and therefore that's where precisely the challenge is. How do we strengthen the coordination and cooperation between various departments as well as federal and provincial departments?
As far as what LEAD's doing though, is anyone listening? Is there any point of the work, the awareness you're trying to make?
See, amazingly so. When we started working on this issue, generally people were not very aware. And in last a few years, as our work has accelerated and the climate has become on the front burner, we have found a group of audience that's very, very receptive, very, very supportive. And this receptivity cuts across various sectors, the corporations, the government departments, media, academia, civil society organizations. We see more and more stakeholders are joining hands to make it a coherent national into a coherent national response.
Okay, Ali Sheikh, thank you very much indeed for coming in tonight. Good to have you with us. I'm going to take a very quick break here. After that,